Hey there, welcome back to the Realm of History. Tonight we got a special edition for you. Chapter 11 quiz is the last quiz of the marking period. So we want to make sure that we do our due diligence and get ourselves ready tonight. Live agenda tonight is going to look a little bit of something like this. First of all, hey, let me know that you're here in the comments. Give me a shout out there. Like up the video. If you're not subscribed, go ahead and subscribe. That way you get the alerts and any new videos that I put out here, you'll be having access to. But the agenda for tonight, some key advice like always. I'm going to go over some selected key terms, mostly key figures tonight. I will give you a lot of advice on the short answer. No need to worry about AP preparation because I took that off for you. And then we'll do some question and answer time and maybe a little bit of final advice tonight. Okay, on to my key advice. First of all, I really think it's important to write some things down from this session. I'm going to give you some key pointers. So I noticed that when I'm grading the outlines, a lot of the ballers and ballerinas that write down things from these sessions do really well. So I think that's beneficial. I also want to remind you to read your outline several times through, sometimes tonight after we go through, tomorrow morning, during your seminar hour, get those readings of the outlines in. Number two, hey, I think right now, especially with everything going on in the world today, you got to pray for the right things, right? When you think about the grand scheme of life right now, this quiz tomorrow is not as important as the atrocities that are being committed against people in Israel, the terrorist attacks there. So I want you to pray for the right things. On top of praying for the people who are, suffering and going through this conflict, I want you to remember, to pray for guidance. Um, don't pray for a good score. Don't pray for a win. We've got some championship games coming up for many sports teams. But I want to encourage you to pray to the good Lord for guidance, to use your talents to the fullest. That's really what it comes down to. But also say the prayer of gratitude and thanks for all the blessings that you have. And I think we all need to remember that. Number three, hey, I want you to be here now. Tomorrow is your last chance to score well. It's great to get a good score, closing out that marking period, finishing strong. That's what I want for you. I want you to be here now. I want you to rise to the challenge. We'll talk about that in a minute, but focus on the task at hand. When you come into the realm tomorrow, pop in history, and that's all you should really be focused on. Number four, say thank you to your parents. I think it's very important. Stop what you're doing right now. If you need to do it right now, if you need to do it after this, but go thank your parents for everything that they've done for you, and make sure that you're expressing your gratitude to them. They really put you in a great position here at St. Mary's, and you need to make the best of it. Number five, meet the challenge. Meet the challenge. This quiz will give you a little bit of adversity. All right. It's going to give you a little bit of adversity. I'm not going to make it too easy for you. Hopefully, it's straightforward. I'm not trying to trick you. I believe that, hey, what we teach in class is what we should assess. There's no tricks or curveballs, but I still want to challenge you, and I want you to rise to the challenge. Don't shy away. Don't skip school tomorrow. All right, come do your quiz, because I'll tell you what, if you miss tomorrow, you miss Friday, and I don't get to grade it in time, I'm going to give you an incomplete. Now that can be rectified, but it's a pain in the neck. So just come, rise to the challenge, and if you're able, take that quiz tomorrow. Let's get it in. Okay, now on to the key terms, the key figures, the key concepts. We're going to talk about quite a few things tonight. Not everything, though, ballers, not everything. The first term that a lot of people had some trouble with in class today was Sultan. You won't have to worry about it too much. I don't think it's actually on the quiz, but just for your general knowledge, a sultan is just another word for king or ruler or leader in the Turkish/Persian area. Okay. Think Aladdin, the movie Aladdin. Jasmine's dad was the sultan, and then the vizier was Jafar, the bad guy. Aladdin is kind of like right around the time period in which we're learning. All right. Next is another word that's very similar. It's Shah. Shah is actually a Persian word, and it stands for king or ruler in the Seljuk Empire. Now, I want to make clear, and this could be a question, the Persians had a very heavy influence on the Seljuk Turks. They are very close cultural practices there. The Persians influenced the Seljuks. Next is the term that I just mentioned, the vizier. The vizier is a political position. All right. It's a position in politics and government. And it's a leader of the Seljuks, not the number one in command, but the second in command, and known as the prime minister. Next is another leadership position, but this time in Russia, the term Tsar. Tsar is the Russian version of Caesar, emperor and or ruler. Okay. The first Tsar was Ivan III, if you've been paying attention. Hopefully you know that. Okay, another question that I got a lot today from the terms was patriarch. Patriarch is the leading bishop of the Eastern Orthodox Church, which is Byzantine Catholicism. Very similar position to the position of Pope in the Roman Catholic Church, okay? But didn't quite have as much power as the Pope does for our church. Next is the Mamluks. The Mamluks were talked about in the AP reading from last chapter. They're basically military slaves. They were used by the Turks, and due to good service, they could end up gaining freedom, and a lot of them ended up serving in government. Okay, now on to the key figures. I want to focus on some of the key figures. I just want to remind you, I see that there's about 100 people with us tonight, which is great. That's a really good numbers, but I only see 68 people have checked in. So if you forgot to check in, let me know that you're here. I really like to look at who is attending and then what grade they end up with. So I think that's something that helps me, it lets me know that you're here. It's not mandatory to be here, but it gives me some data. Ivan I was known as Moneybags. He was appointed tax collector by the Mongols, and he was one of the earliest princes of the city of Moscow. Now, later on down the line, you have Ivan III. He was the first prince of Moscow to openly challenge Mongol rule. All right, so he tried to get rid of the Mongols, and he, like Yaroslav the Wise, used marriage as a political tool. The final, the one key baller that a lot of guys and gals did not know was Alexander Nevsky. Now, I didn't go over him in the notes, but he was in the reading. See, so like I told you, I try to assess you in doing the reading. So I don't always put everything to you. I don't always spoon feed everything to you. It's in the reading. Alexander Nevsky, though, he was a Russian prince. He's also a military hero, and he urged the Russians to cooperate with the Mongols. Why is this odd? Why am I focusing on it? Well, because he's a military hero, you'd think most military guys are like, oh, all right, we're going to fight these Mongols, right? Well, he was like, no, we recognize how strong they are. We know that we won't win, so we need to cooperate with them. So he was trying to advise his fellow Russians not to fight them. They weren't ready to fight the Mongols yet. Now, when Ivan III came into power, okay, they were ready. They had built an army. Next is the Empress Theodora. Like to focus on women in history, and she was Justinian's wife. There's a very important insert box that I want you to study if you haven't done so. It's on page 303. That box kind of tells you a story of how really behind Justinian, she was really a powerful woman that helped him rule. Next is Malik Shah. Malik Shah was from section 3. He was a Seljuk ruler. He's really the last and most effective Seljuk ruler and leader. And that's really what you want to know. All right. This isn't an entirely long quiz. You can see that the review sheet, probably average size, but there's only 26 questions tomorrow. So we don't really have a whole lot to go over tonight. I do want to talk to you next, though, about some of the short answer possibilities. Okay. So I'm going to have a ticker going across the screen at the bottom, and it's basically going to talk about, hey, what are those possibilities? Okay. What are the factors that you might see in a question tomorrow? So the first thing that I want to make you aware of is the 4 components of Justinian's code. With this, what you're going to have to do there, you're actually going to have to know the 4 parts of the code, and you're going to have to be able to define them. Use your notes. I did this for you. I spelled it out clearly, what each part, the code, the digest, the institutes, the novella, I already told you what they all are. So you're going to need to really know that in and out. Second, I really want you to focus on what factors led to the decline of the Byzantine Empire, right? So disease, invasion, right? Poor leadership after Justinian's death. All of those factors need to be known by you, and you need to be able to explain those in writing. Then now I taught some of the classes. I taught what the Nika riots and rebellions were. Other classes who ran out of time, I told you to research this. So either way, you need to know that the Nika riots were started in the Hippodrome. They basically had teams of chariot racing. They would wear like blue shirts, green shirts, yellow shirts, red shirts, kind of like people going to sporting events today. But they get out of hand. They were like hooligans. They would get into brawls and things after. One of them got way out of hand, and Justinian sent in the police force, and they started beating these fans, and the fans didn't like it. And so they actually called for the removal of Justinian as emperor, and they want to overthrow him. So about 40,000 fans marched, and they ended up in the Hippodrome. Justinian wanted them stopped, so he sent in the military general, your boy Belisarius. Belisarius is like, all right, I'm going to take care of this. Justinian didn't want him to kill everybody, but he's like, okay, I'm going to take care of it. He locks the doors, and the army slaughtered 30,000 Byzantine citizens in the Hippodrome. It's called the Nika riot, Nika massacre. So you can look it up. There's a primary source by a historian that wrote a lot about Byzantine history. His name's Procopius. You can look him up and you can read the actual document of him describing the event. And then the last short answer is going to be a surprise. The last short answer, I'm not going to tell you what it is. You kind of have to think historically a little bit about what we've been learning about, and something that shows up several times in this chapter alone. Okay. All right. So I'm going to pull the ticker down. I think I've had it up there for long enough. You should have a good idea of what you need to know. I just went over that. So at this time, I'm going to open up for question and answers. I'm going to give me a minute. I'm going to go to the comments now. I'm going to open up the comments. And I really want to thank everyone for being here tonight. I appreciate you, and I hope that it's going to be helpful for you. Okay, excellent. I'm looking for questions now, so go ahead and fire your questions in. Thank you all for coming. I really appreciate it. I hope it's helpful. Can you explain Eastern Orthodox Christianity? Yeah, no doubt about it. Now, the chart on page 305 is really helpful. So in 1054, there was a split. Before this, the only Christian church was the Roman Catholic Church. That's it, in Rome. When Diocletian splits the empire in 395, things started to grow apart due to lack of communication. And in the Byzantine side, the eastern side, they started to develop a different form of Christianity. Okay. It's very similar. Some of the differences include, like, priests can be married in the Orthodox Church. Some of the things that they do in Mass are different. The use of icons. But what you really need to know is it's a branch off of Catholicism. It's a form of Catholic. It's Eastern Orthodox Catholic. And then there's Roman Catholic in the West. That's really what you would need to know. How many short answers? 4 to 5. 4 to 5. Can I explain the Conet of the Golden? It's actually Conet Golden Horde, Gia. So I just want to recognize Gia is always on, always asking questions, and she's been really balling out of control in class. So that's good. But the Conet of the Golden Horde is the land that the Mongols called the area that they ruled in Russia. So the area that the Mongols were controlling in Russia is called the Conet Golden Horde. And the reason it's called that is because it means Kingdom Golden Camp. And so they called it golden because Russia was very wealthy producer for them. So they gained a lot of money, a lot of wealth, a lot of prestige by controlling the area of Russia that they did. What language these boys speak? Well, If you're talking about the Byzantine Empire, that'd be Greek. If you're talking about the Seljuk Turks, that'd be mostly Arabic or Turkish, sometimes Persian. If you're talking about Russia, they spoke Slavic and a little bit of Greek later on. Okay. I guess that's what the question meant. Can you define Olga? Olga is a princess from Kiev, Lucas, and she is the first to publicly convert to Christianity. So she traveled to Constantinople, and while there, she publicly converted to Byzantine Christianity. Well, John, not much. You need to know their names, you know. You just need to know geographically that those rivers allowed for trade and travel, helping to irrigate soil, and then all of the basics of rivers, cleanliness, water for hydration, for hygiene, also for fishing, and all of those great things. Okay. Serena, great question. Yeah, I mean, that was definitely in the reading. So I would say yes, I think that's an important factor to know. Yes. Okay. Saint Cyril and Saint Methodius, they were missionaries of the Eastern Orthodox Church. They were sent into Russia, and their goal was to convert the Slavs. The problem was they spoke Greek, and their Bible was written in Greek, whereas the Slavic peoples, they spoke Slavic, so they couldn't read the Bible. So what happened is Saint Cyril and Methodius came up with an entirely new alphabet, which is called the Cyrillic alphabet. And so they used that to translate the Bible into a more friendly version that the Slavic peoples could read. And this helped them gain converts. Where is Connacht Golden Horde? Give me 1 second. I'll pull up my book. I don't have the page memorized, but it's in the early 300s, Master John. All right. Give me just 1 second. Okay, so if I'm going into the book, it's going to definitely be in section 2. We know that. It's on page 309. It shows you exactly where the Connacht of the Golden Horde was located. So do you see that purple region right there? That's where the Connacht Golden Horde was located. And that's on page 309 of the text. All right. Okay, Angelina says, will we need to know about excommunication? Yeah, it was a key term. Will it show up on the quiz in maybe a multiple choice or matching? Probably not, because it wasn't on the review sheet. But could it be a possible helper for short answer? Yes. So that's something that you want to know. Good question, Dean. Who were the two that married their daughters for political purposes? First one was Yaroslav the Wise. Second one was Ivan the Third. A lot of people did this, but they were known for doing this. Okay, Gia, what do we need to know about Moscow? Well, Moscow kind of developed while the Mongols were ruling, and it became a very big stronghold for the Russians. And it became a site where the Russians kind of separated from Mongol rule. Second, Vikings, you need to know that they mixed with the Slavs in early Russia. And then from there, they kind of blended and unified with the Slavs and became the early Russian peoples. No, not for this quiz, Serena. I wouldn't worry about studying it. How many people died in Nika riots? Procopius says 30,000 dead. That's probably an estimate, but that means there were a lot of people killed. But 30,000 is the general number that we find. Oh, donkeys. I just hit the wrong button. Let's see. Battle of Manzikert will also not be on the quiz. Genghis Khan, you want to know that he was very feared warrior. He's a big time leader of the Mongols. He died in 1227, but he started the invasion in Russia, and then his grandson Batu Khan kind of continued those invasions. How would I define the Vikings? I'd say they are people that came from the Scandinavian region. And in the case of this chapter, I would say that they traveled down and settled into the early Russian lands. What group or groups were in Kiev? Well, Vikings and Slavs had blended at that point, and they formed early Kiev. And it was eventually taken over by the Mongols, though, too. You got to know that. They conquered and destroyed it. Empress Theodora was Justinian's wife. There's a very important page about her. It's on page 303. It's an insert box, talks about what she did to help Justinian. Last week's quiz will be in gradebook tonight. I have one more class to grade. I've got a grade 8th hour tonight, so I'm going to stay up late, get those graded, and hopefully entered either tonight, late, or early tomorrow. See how well I do. Well, just for your knowledge, they call him Yaroslav the Wise because he created the first legal code of laws in Kiev, and he created the first library in Kiev. They called him the Wise also because he made shrewd moves by marrying off his daughter. So those are some of the things you'll need to know. Define the Mamluks. Yeah, the Mamluks are basically soldiers that are slaves. A lot of them come from Egypt, but they are also sometimes Christians that the Turks would purchase and then turn into soldiers. But then if they had good service, like if they displayed good service or good aptitude, good loyalty to the Seljuk Turks, then they could sometimes be freed. And a lot of times they ended up taking positions in government. The most important thing to know about the Mongols for this chapter is that they were fierce horsemen and that they conquered Kiev in 1240 and ruled Russia for about a couple hundred years until the standoff at the Ugra River in 1480. Leaders of Kiev, Dean, include Olga, Vladimir, Yaroslav the Wise. Those are some of the ones that, there are others, but those are the ones that were kind of important for this quiz. Belisarius, you want to know he was Justinian's best military general. He was sent into North Africa, reconquered it, sent into Rome, reconquered it. And then from there, he eventually plays the role in the Nika riots where he slaughtered 30,000. Master Harrington, what do we need to know about Yaroslav? Well, he's from Kiev. He's a ruler of Kiev. He's Vladimir's son. He married his daughters off for political gain. He formed the first code of laws in Kiev. He also created the first library in Kiev, but he made a bad move by not following tradition and passing his throne down to his oldest son. Instead, he divided his throne to his several sons, and then they fought over it. What do we need to know about Constantinople? Constantinople was the capital city of the Byzantine Empire. You're going to want to know where the invasions came from. Yes, Maddie, because if you want to be able to explain why the Byzantine Empire fell, you need to be able to talk about the multiple invasions happening from different parts, coming from different directions, which caused their military to really have a tough time to defend. You should be able to do this, Gia. Yeah, the chart on page 305, extremely important, which will help you be able to talk about the similarities and the differences. That page does a really good job. Yes, Aubrey, it's on the review sheet. It's a key place. Yes. Okay, I've made it through all of the questions. We knocked it out in about 26 minutes, so that was a sign of strength. I'm going to wait for just a few more moments, and I will answer any other questions that filter in. Hopefully, this was helpful for you. I really appreciate all of you coming tonight. And hey, if you have any questions or comments, if you want to ask me anything at all, I'm willing to stay on here for another 5 minutes. Let's say we got a couple questions coming in late on the ticker. Mongols attacked by land guy. Yeah, they would attack Japan by sea, but it was a big failure. So they're mostly a land-based military. No, I was just teaching, Duke. You know, the Great Wall of China. What I said today is that parts of it were built to try to keep the Mongols out. It usually does repost. It won't show comments, Dean, because what YouTube does, it has to check the comments to make sure everybody was appropriate. But it should actually repost right after I close it out, honestly. All right, Gia. So not all of Russia was protected by log walls, just Moscow. Moscow had a wooden log defense wall, which made it hard for the Mongols to attack it later on. But not all of Russia, just Moscow. Okay, anybody else have any questions or comments or concerns? Let me know. I'll stay on here for a few more minutes. You know what? I'm going to give you some advice for those who are still on. I would say here's a list of important page numbers to study. Here, I'm going to go through the list. 299, 302, 303, 305, which is the chart about East and West Christianity. And then there's also a nice timeline of major events from this chapter. It's on page 318. It's like at the chapter review part. I looked at that today and I was like, man, that's helpful because it talks about all the key things that happen and it gives you the date. So 318, I strongly suggest. So once again, 299, 302, 303, 305, and 318. I was looking through the book before this session, and I think that those are like the most pertinent pages, like that have good charts or maps that relate to questions on the quiz. So I looked through the quiz while I was doing that, and I was like, yeah, these pages are legit. So if you want to look at some book pages tonight before bed or tomorrow morning, I think those would be very helpful and useful for you. Anything else? Well, doesn't look like many questions are coming in on the ticker, so I'm going to bid you a great night. I really want to say I appreciate all of you. I love all of my students, and I really hope that you guys do a great job tomorrow. Hey, remember, this quiz is not the end-all be-all. It is the last one, but I want to encourage you in understanding that as long as you give your best possible effort, like you're a champion in my book. Like if you really can look yourself in the mirror and say, I did everything that I could to prepare for this quiz, then you're doing your thing, you know, and I'm proud of you. So, hey, I don't, you know, if you get a 15 or a 20 or a 13, if you put in that effort, I'm proud of you. All right. Have a wonderful night, and we'll see you tomorrow. God bless.